Welcome to our podcast.
It is Klaus
Kross.
and KONVOS.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to be here. It's been a long time coming because,
while.
we have some of the most profound conversations in our lives. Like, when we talk, we talk.
Yeah, we do.
And we are very uncensored and raw with ourselves.
Right.
We go deep down.
Right. Yeah, but the truth is, crazy thing is, we are always willing to say, I hear what you're saying, but
I don't agree with this. I don't agree with that. Yeah.
So, but mostly we align, and that's kind of why we're doing this, to share all those conversations we have when,
Yeah. And we'll talk politics, culture, family, Nigeria. Yeah, and we're in the US, so we'll talk the US.
Exactly.
Definitely. Politics in the US is juicy.
Yeah, this is where we live, right?
And we started this podcast right at the next coming election.
Yep.
And it's going to be great. So we're going to talk about some of those things, and hopefully, our guy wins.
Yes. Don't even blame me when it comes to that guy.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We got to make that happen. So, well, it's going to be a fun time together with my brother and my friend, and we're going to have fun. So,
make yourself known through text, through messages, through comments. We're hoping for it. We'll be excited to talk about it. Whether or not you agree with us, don't matter. It's still not going to stop us from saying how we feel anyway. So, just be part of it.
Yeah, and you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter,
TikTok.
And we'll have a dedicated page for the podcast on Instagram. So there you can find all the clips and snippets. And, sometimes we'll do some personal things on our own, and we'll have it all on the page. So join us on social media platforms.
And don't forget YouTube, though.
Yeah. YouTube, no, definitely. This is the main place.
Exactly.
Yeah. YouTube is the main place. So you're going to sign up here, subscribe, hit the like button, leave comments. We love the comments.
Yeah, we do.
The comments give us all the feedback that we need, and so we can tailor our show to your needs. And so I'm super excited for what's next.
Yeah. So stick with us. KKK.
Uncensored. Okay, so today what are we talking about?
Yeah, I've always wondered, I think I probably stumbled on it sometime back too, why Nigerians work so hard in the US, a place where we live mostly on credit, if you can save cash as much as you can, you're saving it towards a project.
Projects, yes.
But eventually they grab all that money and take it to Nigeria to build a huge mansion that they only get to visit.
Every once in a while. It's crazy.
Why?
I don't know. And what I tell people is where you have your family is where your home is.
That's home, practically.
And so people always say, oh no, go build some house in the village and some house.
Yeah.
It doesn't entirely make sense to me. My father has one of the biggest houses in the village.
I bet all you ever do is renovate.
Yeah, you just go there, fix the repairs. Because we visit them maybe like 3 or 4 times in a year. In fact, I haven't been.
Oh, you guys visit more than we ever did.
I haven't been there in like 10 years now.
Okay.
And whenever we go, we just go, hey, this is spoiled, this is fixed, this needs to be fixed, and we fix them. Then my mom goes a couple of times because she's involved in all the village meetings and stuff. So she goes every once in a while, but she can only stay in one room. It's a huge house. Yeah, look at it. Yeah, it's a large house.
But let's not forget what we're talking about.
That's what I'm saying.
Folks in Nigeria, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, at least my dad lived most of his life in Nigeria. But for people who have established their life right here in the US and live here in the US, I wonder why they do that. Because it's also a missed opportunity. Because I'd rather invest in a house here because it will make me more money in the long run if I eventually decide to sell or do other things. And
you want to hear the crazy part of this is how you're living in a 2-bedroom apartment with probably 4 or 5 kids in the US.
And you have a mansion right there in the village.
Just so when you, and I know some really renowned people who are some sort of celebrity, and there's this ridiculous thing when they finally build a house and it's all furnished, it's always with gold. I don't know what's with the gold color.
Gold, yeah. There's always this gold.
There's a reason why there's no touch of gold in my house. But I'm thinking, why would you do all of this to spend 3 weeks at home so you can have a gate man and a driver you wouldn't, like all these things is just kept there so that they can call you madam and oga when you're back.
Yeah.
And then you come back to this struggle. Instead of getting your family a home here, house here that is in the suburb, a yard, like this money can do so much good.
For you here, yeah.
Because most part of your life is being spent here.
And some people will argue that to build those houses right there is not as much as what they would use in getting a house here. So they will argue that, because the naira to dollar ratio is so large, they don't get to spend as much to build those houses back there.
I hear
that.
I hear the argument. Sort of almost want to make a case. That money would not mean much, or your definition of is not comparably like too much, if your folks in Nigeria are living in that house. The part that really offends me
is the build a house and it's empty.
It's just there, bro.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It's just there. You show up once a year, sometimes once in 2 years.
I would argue that someone should maybe have something like an apartment.
Exactly.
That you buy, maybe a 2-3 bedroom apartment.
Like should be, especially now that there is.
That you could also use for business when you're away.
Oh, now you're speaking my language. If you're ever gonna do something like that, my brother, my sister, make sure it's like some apartment concept.
Yeah.
Short let or however.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
You can do all those kind of things when you are away.
Any ads for Airbnb before you start feeling special. That you're just the most popular brand. Started all of this. But, if I own something like that, it'll mean that when I'm coming to town, whoever my asset management company is would know the next 3 weeks or 1 month.
Yeah.
The boss is coming.
Let's leave it open. Yeah. And I think that's the best way to do it, because building those houses and building all those things, you find out in the long run you spend a lot more money in maintenance than you actually plan to if you were living there.
The part that really EQ'd me is the fact that to me, in my mind, I moved to the US barely 2 days ago. That's how I feel. Yeah. Because you're like, how am I already 10 years, 15 years in this country? Now imagine folks who've been here 20, 25, 30 years. The bulk of your life has been here in a very rugged, horrible apartment. And you only feel comfortable, enjoy your money once a year for 3 weeks. Like, why would you do that?
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. And people do that because they say, let me have this house in the village.
So it's a statement.
It's more like some kind of prestige thing, some kind of class thing. So that they can call me, I'm a big man, I live abroad, but you're suffering abroad.
And that's my point.
Yes, you have this big mansion. And
you should be the one to enjoy your hard work, your labor though. Just get something here where you come home.
And they also make this argument that, this is not our home. My home is Nigeria.
And you just spent 40 years as a
visitor somewhere. 40 years.
I hear you, my guy.
So, so it doesn't really make sense.
No.
I just think if my family is here, if I'm raising a family here, that's my home.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
when I'm there, that's my home because that's where I come from. But still, if like my pastor used to say something that if we open your body now and bring out your hearts, how are we going to know that this is a Nigerian heart?
Exactly.
Or if we open it now, like let's say we open heart surgery, bring out your kidney. Who will know that this is an American kidney or a Nigerian kidney or a Japanese kidney?
No difference.
It makes no difference.
The donor is a donor.
Yeah. And let's assume your parents gave birth to you in Japan. Or maybe someplace else, and you grew up there. You call yourself Japan.
That's technically.
It doesn't make it because that's the culture you grew up with. But there's nothing specifically intrinsically that makes us white or black or Nigerian or Canadian or whatever.
We need to have a mindset shift because that's how we grew up. They're telling us home. You always see this post where they say home is always home. No place like home.
No place
so
like home.
what do you call where you've been for 10 years, where you have wife and kids, where you have businesses? What do you call that?
Friends, everything.
Exactly.
You build your life around
It's not home, so you're a visitor who's just building so that when you're 90 and can't walk, you go home to do what?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
It doesn't make sense.
Make life as holistic as possible where you live, where your family is, and invest wisely. Stop building, again, we're going to talk about this later. Well,
for sure.
You guys get the gist, right?
So I actually really want to talk about the next
President. I know. I knew. This guy can't wait for November 5th and 4th.
I actually wake up anxious most times.
Are you serious?
Thinking about the next election. It's very important to me.
Yeah.
It matters. It matters. A lot of people take it for granted and say, "Oh, it doesn't really matter." And because I support Donald Trump,
right?
And one of the reasons I support Donald Trump is because the agendas that he champions and his party champions aligns with my values and my goals and God's values and goals. And people would always make these arguments, oh, the person you're talking about is divorced 3 times, married to is that aligned with your Christian principles? I'm like, he doesn't have to align with my Christian principles because politics in itself is a secular.
Thank God you went there. Yes, that was going to be my
politics in itself is a secular thing. Yeah. It's a secular of whatever it is. It is secular. But the thing is, I would rather have someone who would protect my right to live the kind of life that I want to live.
Yeah.
Because when you begin to censor my speech, that means you are stopping me from living my life and living my freedom of religion.
Yeah.
And
we saw a lot of that during the pandemic.
Yes, there was a lot of censorship. There's a lot of look at a lot of this social media censor people when they say certain things. No, I should have freedom of speech. That's my right. Right. And these are God-given rights. It's not even man-given. So if the man wants to stop me from being able to say what I want to say, worship what I want to believe, what I want to believe, yet we find out that the left tell us, a man wakes up and say, I'm a woman now. And we are being forced to call them a woman or address them with certain pronouns and certain... It doesn't make sense to me because it's against my personal beliefs and against my religious rights and whatever. And I want to be able to talk about these things. And so that's why I support people like Donald Trump, because he champions the agendas that I support. And he gives me ability to worship the way I want to worship. He gives me and I've been on his presidency for 4 years. And I had a way better, the economy was way better, there was less inflation, things were way better. And compare that to his opponents, which is Kamala Harris of the Democratic Party. He's had a long career as a public servant back in California. But look at California in comparison to a lot of other places. Is messed up.
Actually, you're going too way back. If you were to use the 3.5 years with her and Biden, it's enough testament. But I'm going to piggyback on what you said initially when you said it was a secular, game and stuff. And this is why most Christians didn't always participate. They always felt like, oh no, these are the things of the world, we're Christians. But here's where you're missing out though. Everything, whether you like it or not, as long as you live on earth, the politics is always going to affect you. Your paycheck, the taxes. You're literally sponsoring wars across the country, across the world, whether you like it or not. You're by paying your taxes. So from local, I remember someone who's very educated sent me a message after seeing my WhatsApp story and said, don't even pay attention to national election like presidential. They are puppets. They don't matter. What really matters is your local election. And I couldn't, to the point where I couldn't even...
I don't know how do you fathom that?
Exactly, right? Because Biden's policies is the reason why we have open borders, where they say, some would say 6 million, some would say 15 million people have crossed over. Whose jobs have those mostly impacted? The low-income earners. Who are the people mostly in that category? Is that Spanish and our black folks? So if we put those numbers in play, telling someone to speak up is like you saying, I'm for everybody, and yet you have locks at your doors. I don't get it. If you're really for everybody, you want to preach that to me, Leave your doors open. Let everybody come and go as they want. But you can't live in secure neighborhoods and say, let the rest of the world just get, attacked with all of this. And this whole name calling, once you don't agree, you become either a racist or a bigot. It doesn't leave room.
It doesn't make sense.
It's some type of blackmail. You also mentioned, you said you're beginning to feel anxious. And I heard Megyn Kelly, I was listening to her 2 days ago. She said the same thing. She's like, when she calls some of her friends, they tell her, oh, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, it's 50-50. And she's getting really anxious. I'm like, well, the last 2 elections that we saw, Trump wasn't closing any gaps.
He wasn't closing any polls, yes.
So one, for some reason, he won in spite of what the polls said against Hillary. And for Biden, we know it's a whole totally different story because now that all the audits came out, even though the mainstream media isn't talking about the one in Georgia, the one in not Colorado, Arizona. All these audits are showing.
Even in Virginia.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people who register to vote.
Exactly.
That are not citizens.
Exactly. So all these audits came out, and yet the mainstream media would want to attack. Like the other day, they were asking J.D. Vance, did Trump lose the 2020 election? You have the same information we have with all the audits and saying there was mass irregularities, and yet you keep asking, which means if they are the gatekeepers of truth, you can't question them. When they ask you that question, it means that they're saying their side is still telling the truth. I don't care about that. All I'm saying now is when I look at the polls, this man who's never, actually no Republican, not even Bush got close in terms of national polls. And he's close to the point that the difference is 1. And then within all the swing states, he's leading. Whether it's by point zero or
it doesn't.
And these are polls. Remember, conservatives are not really good with polls. They don't always put out how they're going to vote. It's mostly a liberal thing. So
because conservatives are demonized in this way.
Exactly.
So a lot of people don't even want to talk about how
especially conservatives, because they feel like whenever they put that information out there, they could be attacked tomorrow, so they don't. So this is why the Harris side of things, or the Democratic Party things, are very nervous. Because if these polls coming from these people who usually are not like into this, it means what would the real number be behind?
And you know, one of the things, when I watch Kamala Harris most times, like when I see her speak, when I see her in her campaigning rallies and stuff, I see someone, like I see her behind all of those things, someone who is in over her head. Someone who is trying too hard to be something she's not.
Well, you can understand why though. She got there through fraud.
And so, you know, one of the reasons why the primary elections happen is so that each party can test their candidates. And whoever comes out strong, you know they are ready to face the national public.
That's the fraud.
And so when I see someone who is in over her head, I see fear behind all of the things that she does. And you can imagine when someone like that eventually becomes the president.
It's going to be an imposter syndrome for 4 years.
For 4 years.
Because imagine, when you get a new job, we all experience that. You're like, wait, am I supposed to be here? Is this paycheck for me? Will I get it right? Now imagine someone who Biden, won his primaries legitimately, or however they kicked out Bernie Sanders. I'm not going back into that story, but then while a sitting president, it get taken from you and just handed to someone else. So which will kind of explain why she never has the boldness to say, I'm going engaged, or I don't
because if she went through the process and got this by merit, she'll be able to say, distance herself from Biden and say, oh no, we made some mistakes, which they clearly did. And she's supposed to be able to say,
not all of them are mistakes. Some of them are intentional. If you go by what the data Elon Musk is talking about.
But let's assume they say, oh, I made it, like, it's a mistake, or we thought this was going to work.
Even the border open.
Yes, even the border, because, like the border question, because it's now election season, they did some executive actions that have reduced the influx from the border, but you could have done it 3 years ago. This is KONVOS Uncensored.